Welcome to the Mindful Momentum Leadership Podcast, where we talk honestly about what it takes to lead when the world refuses to slow down. I'm your host, Arora, and today we're going straight to the pressure cooker: AI, innovation, leadership exhaustion, why some teams break while others break through. And I have a perfect guest for this conversation. She's a psychologist, a Silicon Valley insider with 25 years in trenches, an MBA from Berkeley, and a founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Executive Academy, where she immerses leaders in real innovation engine and teaches them how to lead boldly, especially when everything around them is shifting. Dr. Victoria Mensch. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Anu. I'm very excited to be here.
Victoria, leaders are scared right now. Let's name it. AI is moving faster than they can read their inboxes. Teams are stretched thin. We hear burnout all the time. I get coaches who are talking about it actively, not just themselves, their teams, the whole teams. Strategy cycles are feeling obsolete even before they're finished. You work with senior executives around the world who come to your academy because they're not willing to be passive. They want clarity, they want courage, they want capacity. So, my first question is, when your leaders arrive, what is their real question beneath all these questions? What's going on with them? I'm curious.
A lot is going on. And obviously, big topic right now, I think I mentioned in the beginning, big topic right now is artificial intelligence on so many different levels. On the company level, what we're going to do with artificial intelligence, how we're going to implement it, how it's going to impact our business and our strategy, right? So there's these big topics that we're talking about. But then on the personal level, what we see over and over and over again. First of all, there's a pressure from from the stakeholders, from the boards, from the executive boards, from the customers to really show what we're doing with artificial intelligence. So there's kind of this FOMO effect. So, oh, everybody's doing everything, and we're behind. But there's even deeper personal layer there as well, because what AI does, and I think all of us really understands this now, it really goes into the heart of what we do, most of we do as information workers, so to speak, right? So there's this kind of identity crisis. If AI can do what I used to do and AI can do it better, what it is there for me? So there's a lot of kind of conglomerate of all these different issues, and a lot of those issues are really based in fears. Some of those fears are founded, a lot of them are unfounded, but that's what's going on.
Wow, wow. And what is it they expecting when they are coming to you?
I think it's one of the stops, right? So see, first of all, our immersion programs are really geared toward connecting leaders with other like-minded leaders, those and practitioners, those who are walking the same walk, who are implementing these initiatives, so that they can learn from this experience-based knowledge sharing. So I think that's very important. So to understand that I'm not alone, it's not like just my company or my team or myself is in this boat. We're all in this boat. So part of it is that.
Yeah, yeah, that I'm not alone. And you yourself have been in that position, I believe, where you were on the other side for many years. You spent decades inside Silicon Valley. You were at SAP, at innovation centers, and you're now running this academy. But somewhere along the line, you shifted on this side. What brought around your own transformation?
Well, it's a natural, some of it is natural evolution, kind of charting my course. Some of it, I actually usually when people ask me about the burnout, it's definitely when I talk about how to get from burnout to harmony and about burnout-proof leadership, I definitely refer to my own story, how I went through several cycles of those what I know now was a burnout that pushed me to pivot from one career to another career, from one place to another place, before I was able to realize that a lot of what I was experiencing was really my internal habits and lack of skill of dealing with burnout, rather than the environment and the culture and the company or people that I work with. So that's kind of the natural evolution of that progression. I started as a psychologist. I got my PhD in psychology. That was my passion. I followed my passion. And then in about a year, I realized that nope, that's not it.
Oh,
I
wow.
made a mistake. I made a mistake. So I made this dramatic pivot. I left the psychology field altogether and I switched to a corporate world. So I looked around and I saw, well, I'm in Silicon Valley. There's a high tech in Silicon Valley. What can I do with my psychology skills and, tool set? And, it kind of my choice um, fell on marketing. And that's how it happened. And then a few years later, I'm in the same post. Like, oh, again, I made another mistake. I made my choice, but it's not working out for me personally. I feel unmotivated. I feel kind of lack of energy and I feel exhausted. So let me switch again. So I made another switch. And it went through several of those cycles when I realized, well, there's a one common denominator in all of that, and that's me, right? So I really need to look at what it is that I can do to deal with the situation, with the pressure, with the culture around me, with everything with all the obligations that I have, with all the responsibilities that I have and all the goals that I thought I needed to achieve. So that's how I came through that and really kind of came with the idea of the academy again, that I'm not alone in that. So inevitably, each and every conversation, wherever you start with artificial intelligence, or you start with disruption, or you start with innovation, or you start with a strategy challenge. Inevitably, that conversation somehow, somewhere, pretty fast leads to how do we actually avoid burnout. So we are also overwhelmed. We are under such enormous pressure. It's not just on the leadership, but on the teams and the companies and corporations, how they sustain that pressure. So, and that's kind of the academy, what we are trying to do. Yes, on one side, there's the Silicon Valley Innovation Playbook that we're helping leaders to tap into that playbook. What it is that high-tech companies do that make them successful and help them compete in innovation sustainably over and over again, come up with these new ideas. But we'll also want to recognize that all of this is really done by people, right? At the end of the day, there's a human that implements these changes or is the subject of those changes and needs to adapt those changes and learn and push through, right? So how do we actually pair that with that burnout-proof leadership strategies so that people can sustain that change, and not just sustain, but flourish through this, and not just in their corporate life, but as an individual.
Yeah, yeah. What were you seeing when you kind of initially established the academy? You said, okay, I need to set something up because I'm not alone in this. There's so many people who are experiencing it. And what if we set the academy? When you first set it up, what were some of the assumptions you made, and what were some of the things you discovered and said, "Oh, these were these were really assumptions, but that's not true. But this is what is the real challenge." Was it any of that, or what
Well,
happened?
I'm
Just
still discovering this every day, right? So there's a continuous, it's an evolution. Everything is a process, right? So especially, I'm sure you know this from your practice as well, right? So you're continuously monitoring what it is that your potential customers and your real customers are looking for, that feedback loop, how we respond to that. Yes, that's true. We're adapting,
Mhm.
toward those requests and those responses at the end. At the same time, I still that's kind of I guess a lot of my energy really goes into this. I want to hold on to that North Star, right? So at the end of the day, this is really about people, about our human qualities. Leadership is not a leadership in the vacuum, right? So leadership really starts with self-leadership. So you become that role model. And from that role model, that's how the changes are trickling down. When you don't really wait for others to give you responsibility, or you don't really wait for permission to implement the changes, but you start with yourself. If you're burned out, if you're not happy, the chances are that your team is feeling the same. So if you switch, if you turn your cruise ship the way you want it to be, your
Yeah.
team will go along with you.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things which, you know, is sticking with me, and you've mentioned it in a few different ways, is that when the same pattern started to happen, I had to look at myself. This is happening. The same thing you're talking about the leaders, when they are, what they are projecting is what the team is projecting back to them. And I think that's huge. One is recognition of the patterns itself, but then how do we go to the next level? And I see that the leaders get stuck in that in between, right? They might have a little bit of, this happened again. Oh, I have to move. This, I burnt out here too. Oh, I have to move to a different job. And I burn out here too. And they kind of recognize that there is a pattern, but they're not able to get out of it. They're stuck in that messy middle. Um, I would love to kind of double click on that with you and say,
Mhm.
well, how do you help leaders to come on the other side? How do you help them recognize that, the power is within them? This is how they do it. What's your methodology there?
Yeah, so the recognition, I really like the word that you used here is recognition, right? So that's the acknowledgement of your own power to change the situation, I think is what's important. So the acknowledgement that yes, there are a lot of things that we cannot control. When we're talking about disruption. So today it's artificial intelligence. Tomorrow it's going to be quantum computing. A few years ago it was mobile technology. It could be, a storm somewhere in the world. So there's a weather pattern disruption. So there's so many disruptions that are going on. So understanding that disruption is not going to go away. So there's a continuous evolution and evolution that's going on, especially in the technology world and everything that touches the technology one way or another. So that's part of it. A lot of it we cannot control. AI is going to do what AI is going to do. The technology is going to develop one way or another. We don't know what we don't know what we don't know. But the other part of it is that there is a lot of things that is inside our control. So that recognition, what's outside of my control and what's within my control, that's what's important. So when we talk about what's within my control, especially in the context of burnout, what I usually like to talk about is that what's within your control is how you react to the situation and how you spend how you establish your presence in the morning, in the moment. So one of the things that one of the exercises that we do that I eventually named the micro-joy method is it's a really big element of you gaining that energy back, you reclaiming your energy back, and you claiming your uniqueness and your personality back, is intentionally bringing joy back into your life. So we call it the micro-joy method. And the method is that you actually put a list of 20 things together, 20 activities on the list. The only reason for those activities to be on the list is that they make you happy. It's not because somebody wants something from you, not because it's healthy, not because you should do it, not because it's going to bring return on investment somehow, not because you promised to someone something. The only reason for this item to be on the list is to make you happy. And then you take three of those activities and you put it in your calendar and you do it every day. So three of those joys that you put in the calendar and you do them. And the reason we have micro in that is that it does not have to be something big. It can be something very small. It could be in the middle of the day, I go outside for 2 minutes and I just stand on the terrace and I feel the sun on my face. And in that moment, that's the present. This is what makes me happy. And the only reason for me to do that is so that it makes me happy. And that's how you give permission to reclaim your energy. And that's how you start defining the boundaries. what is a yes for me and what is a no for me. But the biggest part is really reclaiming that energy and replenishing that bucket that we're talking about, right? Replenishing your own, a glass, so that you are in the right state of mind to keep going. You pay respect to yourself, to your desires, to what you want, and then you keep going, fulfilling those responsibilities that you have.
I saw your energy shift so much when you talked about micro joy. You were joyful yourself. Sometimes even talking about a method like this would is a joy in itself. Like let's bring more joy. And I could
So
see the joy.
I can tell you right now how it usually goes, right? So when a person is burned out, the red thread is exhaustion, right? So there's so many
Yeah.
different symptoms,
Yeah.
physiological, psychological, everything, but the red thread is exhaustion. It's a really state of exhaustion. And then you say, well, now you have to put 20 more things for you to do. I
Yeah.
think I'm already exhausted. You want me to do more of that. And that's why there's a micro element in that. It does not have to be big. It's really this moments in which you
Awesome.
stop and you reclaim your energy, and you do it for yourself because you're worth it. Because you're worth it. Because you're the one implementing these changes. You're carrying all those responsibilities for all others. And in this small moment, you actually put this back to yourself.
I love it. Anything that brings joy is sheer joy to me. I'm glad you have this micro joy method. I hope everyone who is listening today tries it. Do you have any link to that where you have examples of these micro joy methods?
Oh, I
Micro.
talk a lot about this on my channels, on my LinkedIn channel, on my Instagram as well. So all those tips, these are my micro joys. This is how I do it. So this is how you could do this, the tips to reclaim those energies. So before you go on your big meetings, just sit down, and do a few, take a few breaths if this is what if this is what you enjoy, or um just take that break, just acknowledge where you are, and just
Reset.
acknowledge that moment in the present.
And perhaps that will reset also when you do those micro joy activities.
Exactly. Exactly. So then after that, yes, you schedule all those three things in a day. And then at the end of the day, you go back and you think about it. So before, you turn off right after you turned off your phone and you're ready to go to bed, right? So you kind of, go back and say, what were those three moments that I did today? So you basically keep yourself accountable for that. And the other thing of this, though, this is what I noticed for myself when I started practicing this, that when I don't feel that well,
Yeah.
when I feel grumpy, when I feel anger, when I feel tired, I actually go back and I think, did I take care of myself today? Did I have my three joy activities in the day? And more often than not, I didn't. So it's like, oh, guys, it's time for me
So that
to
feedback method also helps that
exactly,
loop, right? Let's check in how I'm
exactly,
feeling, and can I bring joy at this time if I forgot to bring it during the day?
exactly.
You said something which was very interesting. You said, and we turn off our phones. And so I also invite people to turn off their phones. You naturally said it, but it's not necessary that everybody who's, while they're going to sleep, have turned off their phones. The phones might be
Right.
on and on their side. So anytime a message comes, it just that little beep,
Right.
and they don't think it disturbs, but those those things can also disturb the sleep itself.
Right. Right. And obviously, after that, we start talking about boundaries and how you set those
Yeah.
boundaries. But I think the first step is really that kind of reclamation of, oh, what is it that I want, right? So what it is that I enjoy, what makes me happy. I'll tell you my experience, how was the first time when I started putting this list together. And that's actually more typical than not. I stopped at number three. I said, you know what? I don't even know anymore what makes me happy. I
Yeah.
know um, what what makes other people happy. I know what I should do. I know what I need to do, but I don't know what makes me happy. So it took me a couple of weeks to actually put the list together. So to that point, right? So you can imagine what level of burnout I was in when I didn't even remember that there were things that I enjoyed, right?
I bet
And
you haven't.
this is exactly what we are experiencing, right? So that's exactly when I talk to our clients, when I talk to other executives in the same capacity, this is exactly where we are. And it's for women and for men, just really regardless of gender, um, that we actually put this in the back burner and not even give the priority to feeling ourselves happy. But if anything that we know right now from a psychology science perspective, that success and achievement on its own doesn't actually bring happiness. This is the greatest myth that we currently have, that you can become successful and then because of that, you become happy. This is the greatest, probably one of the more damaging myths that we have, right? So it's anything, and psychology as a sign keeps proving it over and over again that it's not just the destination, it's really the journey to that destination that brings that level of satisfaction and joy and happiness.
Yeah, and with those micro moments of joy, we can bring happiness every day.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anytime we don't feel happy, we could practice those.
Yeah.
What a beautiful concept and tool it is. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to switch gears now. I'm going to talk about AI.
Mhm.
What's the hype? What's the hallucination? What's the panic? What's real? What's imaginary? Is the fear imaginary? Is the fear real? You know, do people need to be scared? There's just so much around AI. I want to know your perspective on what do you think how AI is going to play and how is it impacting especially leaders. That's our focus.
Mhm. Well, if we know anything about technology in general, um, and AI in particular, is that we as people, we tend to overestimate the impact of technology in the short run and underestimate the impact of technology in the longer run. So a lot of hype, a lot of fears, a lot of those speculations are really centered around the shorter run. And AI is nowhere near that. So all those fears that we're talking about, so tomorrow, hundreds of millions of jobs are going to be replaced. Those are exaggerated, let's put it this way. Then the longer term, I think we underestimate the impact of this technology on so many levels. So what makes it different um, from other technological waves that we went through recently and not so recently is the proliferation of the technology and what it is that is actually helping us to automate, right? So how the impact of this technology on the way we work, on the way we live. So that is really revolutionary. And I don't think that we actually understand this as a society. And there are some conversations going on from a value-based perspective, what it is that, what impact this technology can make based on what values we as a society choose as a foundation going forward, right? So that's the discussion that's going here, there, somewhere, but not to the extent that I think it needs to happen. In the short run, yes, some of the activities will be and should be replaced by AI, right? So some of those more routine activities, some of those that we did not enjoy doing anyway, will be replaced. And yes, some people can call these jobs, but not necessarily to within the job, right? So we can actually distinguish this by tasks. So for example, if before you were putting together Excel spreadsheets manually, those can be automated. So if you were running massive calculations with a calculator, right? So those will be automated. If you were putting PowerPoint slides manually and creating these charts, that will be automated. But you have to ask, what did you do this for? Why did you do this task? And that why is most likely not automated. So that's most likely the human element of that will not be automated now and will not be automated in the nearest future. So for anyone who is kind of scared of what AI can do and how AI can replace them, I would encourage to think about that. So what if within what you're doing right now, what would you like to automate? What would you like to get rid of? Like look at your job, look at you, what you're doing right now and how you can do it better. Not necessarily faster and more and cheaper, but better. And maybe there's some things that shouldn't be like you shouldn't be doing anyway. They should go away. There's some kind of atavism from eras of transformation that happened before you, before your time, and you just continue as a status quo. So I think it's a great actually opportunity to rethink on a personal level what you can do better and how you can reconstruct what you do and the tasks that you perform so that they are more valuable and they're more satisfactory for you.
Yeah, and human beings are very adaptable. We have seen with other disruptions in technology on how when internet came, how the world transformed with the internet also.
Mhm.
I also think that this, what you're talking about, AI also ties in with your burnout proof leadership that you talk about. And the way I was thinking might be connected, and you have to clarify that, is that when we recognize that where can we leverage technology to assist us to make our jobs simpler, why, every time questioning why am I doing what I'm doing and can the tool do it for me, could I learn this technology and now save 6 hours a week, that could be one way the burnout proof leadership can work. I don't know,
Right,
I'm
right. Well,
making an
even going a
assumption.
step, yeah, even
Yeah,
going a step further, right? So
yeah.
understanding what it is that you're here for. So one of the things that we talk about with leaders, especially those who are experiencing that burnout, is how to work smarter and not harder. And that is really based on the foundation. What is it that value that you bring into this role? Not how many hours you spend doing this, not how many meetings you attended, not how many people you're managing, not how many more activities you put on yourself, right? So what is it that value? And it would be great if that really unique value that you bring into this role, and you start first of all assessing your contribution based on value, not based on how many hours you spend doing this. So
Hmm.
that's actually a fundamental shift, and I think that's where AI really can help on that personal like leadership level, right? And on the teams level as well. So what is it that value that we bring into this organization? And if that value can be automated, well, elevate, right? So come up with a new value. I'm sure the organization will really appreciate that now, so many things that we've done manually before, now we can actually do faster, or maybe we can drop some of the things that we don't need to do them anymore, but you replace it with that different value that you formulated. That's the way to empower yourself and really be in that driver's seat.
I know that you have PhD in psychology, so wanted to talk a little bit about human engineering.
Mhm.
How do you think when you work with these leaders, what's the biggest challenge with humans in leadership? And the reason I asked this question is last week I was interviewing another expert, and he said that we are in shortage of leaders. There aren't that many leaders these days. With all these disruptions with technology, we actually need more leaders than they are out there. And
Mhm.
I said, oh, now you're the right person to ask, why is it that way? Yeah.
Yeah, so and there's some confusion between leadership and management, right?
Yeah.
So we're like we historically,
Yeah.
I think the tendency was to really say, well, a manager is a leader. But I think by now there is more consensus and more understanding that when we talk about leadership, it's not necessarily leading a lot of people or organizations or countries. It's again, when we already touched on that. Leadership is really self-leadership. What is that you leading within yourself, within your life? So that's basically for me, it's taking responsibility, really radical self-responsibility for the outcomes of your action, which comes with the courage, right? So which comes with the proactivity that we're talking about. So that's what leadership is. And in that sense, right, so we've been talking about this for years and years, and I've been on the hiring side, on the hire side, and this is what you're looking for people with. When you're hiring someone, you're exactly looking for leaders, not necessarily for managers, but you're looking for people who are willing to take that responsibility, who have that courage to step up, who have that courage to take that responsibility and carry it forward, who are proactive, who think about their job in terms of value, right? So this is what you're looking for. That's what leadership is all about. And everything that we talked about right now is really not about education. It's not about how much you know. It's not about what school you went to. It's not about what kind of preparation you had, not about the skills that you have. It's really about human qualities, right? That's the differentiation. The skills, the information is getting more and more accessible from the information point of view, right? And we're talking about AI as well. But those qualities, those human qualities of value-based contribution, courage, emotional intelligence, empathy, curiosity, creativity, everything that really pushes you toward being motivated to create a better life for yourself and better world for people around you, right? So that's what we're talking about. This is not just big words. This is how change gets implemented on the personal level, on the company level, on the team level, on the organization level.
Mhm. So then leaders are then made, not necessarily born.
This is a practice. This is a
Yeah.
practice, exactly. For some people, they are probably easier for them, more natural for them to practice this skills, right? And this behavior. For others, this is a practice. So you make a decision, right? To take responsibility. And every time you look at what needs to be done, say, okay, I'm responsible, whatever the outcome, whether it's a success or it's failure, I acknowledge that. So whatever is happening, I'm responsible for the outcome of that. So I created this.
Nice, nice. I'd love to know about your program. If you can walk us through, how does your program work?
Yeah, most of the programs that we do again go back to Silicon Valley Innovation Playbook, right? So the what is that playbook? So
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is that?
We all know that Silicon Valley is an innovation hub, right? So it's
Yeah.
throughout the world, it's really famous for producing this breakthrough, mostly technological, but not just technological innovation, right? So for the innovation culture, what it is that made this high-tech company successful? Can it be replicated anywhere else in the world? What's the secret sauce, right? So within our kind of playbook, we came up with 4 pillars that I think distinguish and can be implemented in other organizations as well. So what really distinguishes Silicon Valley from other places or Silicon Valley companies from everything else is we're talking about the ecosystem density, right? So that's very unique to Silicon Valley. It's not that easy to replicate historically. By accident, it so happened that over here we have this ecosystem that's really geared toward producing those ideas and monetizing those ideas, right? Turning them into businesses and successful businesses. And there is a university as a part of that. There is a venture capital as part of this. There is a whole infrastructure of accelerators and incubators and the networking element that's here. that's geographic, but even that can actually be kind of uh, from the mindset perspective can be replicated and applied elsewhere. The second pillar is the risk taking, right? So how do we calibrate and take those risks? How do we? It's not like a failure is rewarded in Silicon Valley, but it's not punishable, right? So failure is really viewed as a data point, as a lesson rather than the end all. It's a failure. It's not a failure. It's a lesson that we need to learn. We need to extract that data and continue. So to the point that I think we had a conversation a couple of days ago, and one executive in the room asked, well, how many of you within the organization really reward successes and celebrate success? And everybody raised their hands. How many celebrate failures? And nobody raised their hands. But that's exactly what it takes to really take that page from the Silicon Valley Innovation Playbook and apply in the organization. Failures are to be celebrated, not just because they failed, but it's like understanding and analysis of why it failed. And when we try to do something else, we will not repeat this mistakes. We'll make other mistakes, but we will not repeat this. We really can build on that. Which brings me to the third pillar, which is bias toward action. And that's a culture of experimentation, right? So yes, there is a element of strategizing and planning and building consensus and running all the scenarios in a strategy war rooms, what have you. But there is also that bias toward action when you do things, so that you can collect more data points. You can create your hypothesis. You can run your experiment. You collect the data. You make a decision, and you pivot from there. So you build on that experimentation. And the last one is really collaborative networks. So innovation doesn't really happen in a vacuum, not within one team, between teams in the organization, between the organizations. So that open network, collaborative network, the more you can build that and tap into the expertise and the knowledge and the tools and the advancements of other players and other teams within that ecosystem, the more innovative you have a chance to be. So that's what we're talking about within this innovation playbook, right? So, and then our programs are really built on that. So, and the element of that is immersion, when we actually, take those executives and they can see within the companies how it works and talk again, firsthand with the innovators and practitioners, and through workshops, obviously, and through presentations by people who are actually creating that future. What's their take? So they're putting their stakeholders, they're putting their money, their effort, their time where where the business is, right?
So you're connecting them with
Yes.
the what's going on in the actual
Yes.
world.
Mhm.
Yeah. And setting them up for success.
Right.
I'm going to move to the final part of our interview today, and I have four rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay, let's go. One myth about an innovation that needs to die.
One myth is that it has to be successful. So innovation is really experimentations, it's iteration, and 9 out of 10 efforts will probably not succeed and fail by standard terms. But that's the myth that needs to die, right? So innovation is going to go forward in not very structured manner. So you really have to look at this as the data collection, as lessons to learn and implement.
Nice. One mindset leaders need to adopt for 2026.
specifically related to artificial intelligence technology, one of the mindsets is really to understand that, yes, it is technology, but you can't treat it as just technology. Because if you just look at this as a technology patch that you can slap on your processes, that's probably the road to failure. So you really have to understand that it requires a shift in thinking for how this technology can transform your business. What can we do now with this technology that was not possible before? So that the mindset that needs to happen. That's the 2026 imperative to really look at the AI that way. Not just how can I do more of stuff that I am doing right now, but how can I look at the AI as that transformative force that allows me to do something that was not been possible before.
Nice. One skill that will be important for 2026.
I think it's important always, not just for 2026, but maybe now more than ever, is really curiosity, right? So we talked about the disruption is going to happen. There will be more and more things that we don't know. The new tools are going to come. The new information is going to come very rapidly, very rapidly. So the only way to really go with this is keep an open mind, be open to learning, and be curious. Be curious. What is it that I can learn from this? What is it that I can adapt? What is it that I can acquire? What is it that I can be open to?
What's one practice that keeps you grounded when everything around you is falling?
I go back to my micro joy, my list of 20. I revise it every 6 months or so.
Oh, now you have list of many 20s there. That's
Right.
wonderful. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I stand by that one.
Nice, nice. So when you imagine the future of leadership, what do you imagine?
I imagine that leadership would set the tone for us to live a life of flourishing. I think for too long, we've been distinguishing between this, we talk about balance, work-life balance, right? So there is no balance. So I really like to talk about harmony. And there are all these parts that contribute into us individually being in the state of flourishing rather than just going with the flow. So my hope for leadership, and that's the future of leadership, especially with all those technological advancements, I think we can intentionally set the goal that our kind of, productive life is really, going in that direction of flourishing. How can I be in harmony? How can I build a career that makes sense? How can I have a purpose? How can I have relationships? How can I have wealth around this, right? So all those different parts that really put together this multi-dimensional, multi-passionate human being that can also be a leader.
Well said. Amen. With that, we will end today's podcast. Thank you, Victoria, for being here with us. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today to Mindful Momentum Leadership Podcast.